The desolate planet lay ahead, its surface scorched by countless suns. A few ancient structures dotted the barren landscape, half buried in the sand, remnants of a long-forgotten civilization. A small, rugged ship descended slowly through the thick atmosphere, its engines buzzing as they fought against the planet's gravity. Inside the ship, Xander sighed, glancing at the small holomap that flickered in front of him. He was a space explorer, and he'd been to many worlds, each more dangerous and mysterious than the last. But this was different. He had received a transmission from a fellow explorer who'd vanished months ago. The message had been brief. "Something's out there. I found her, and I shouldn't have." Xander had a gut feeling that whatever had taken down his friend was still here, lurking in the shadows of this forgotten place. As the ship touched down, he took a deep breath and geared up, preparing for whatever lay ahead. The air was thick with dust as he stepped onto the surface of the planet. The wind howled through the ruins, carrying with it the scent of dry earth and mystery. He adjusted the straps on his gear and started to walk, his boots crunching softly in the sand. He didn't know what he was looking for, but he had to find it, and fast. The ruins stretched ahead, dark and broken, as if they had been abandoned for centuries. The deeper he went, the more the air seemed to change, thicker, heavier. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up, and a chill ran down his spine. Something was watching him. He couldn't explain why, but he could feel it. He stopped for a moment, pulling out a small scanner from his belt and activating it. The device beeped softly, showing no signs of life nearby. But Xander knew better. The feeling of being watched grew stronger with every step. He moved cautiously, eyes darting from side to side. Suddenly, a low growl broke the silence, sending a shock of adrenaline through his body. Xander spun around, raising his gun in the direction of the sound. What he saw stopped him cold. Emerging from the shadows of a nearby building was a massive figure, a woman, but not just any woman. She was tall and strong, with sharp, predatory features. Her skin was a deep bronze, her muscles defined like a warrior's. Her hair, dark as the night sky, flowed like a river down her back, and her eyes. They glowed with a fierce, amber light. But it wasn't just her appearance that was terrifying. It was the aura she gave off. Wild, untamed, like a beast of the jungle. She had the look of someone who had been hunted. And now, she was the hunter. Xander's grip tightened on his gun, but the woman didn't seem fazed. She stepped forward, her movements graceful and silent, like a predator closing in on its prey. "You're not from here," she said, her voice low and smooth, yet carrying an edge that made his blood run cold. Xander hesitated, trying to decide whether to run or stand his ground. He wasn't a coward, but he knew better than to underestimate someone like this. She wasn't just an outlaw. She was something else, something dangerous. "I don't want any trouble," Xander said, keeping his gun aimed at her, though his hand shook slightly. "I'm just looking for someone." The Beastwoman tilted her head, studying him. There was something about the way she looked at him, calculating, as if she was weighing his worth. "Looking for someone," she repeated, her lips curling into a small, dangerous smile. "You're not just looking for someone, are you? You're running from something." Xander's eyes narrowed. How did she know that? "I've seen your kind before," she continued, taking another step forward. "Space explorers. Mercenaries. People like you always have something to hide. And I'm here to take what I want." Before Xander could react, the woman's claws extended from her fingertips, sharp and glistening in the dim light. She lunged, faster than he could react, and in a blur of motion, she had him pinned against the wall of the ruined building, her claws lightly grazing his neck. Xander gasped, trying to push her off, but the woman was too strong, her grip unyielding. She leaned in close, her hot breath on his skin, and whispered in his ear, "You're mine now." His heart raced. He had never been in a situation like this before, tracked by an enemy so skilled, so dangerous. And yet there was something about her that intrigued him, something beyond the threat she posed. Was she simply an outlaw, or was there more to her than that? The Beastwoman released her grip slightly, standing up and taking a few steps back. Her gaze never left him, and she still had that unsettling smile on her face. "I claim you as my loot," she said, her voice almost playful, but still carrying an undercurrent of danger. "You will come with me. And if you try to run, well, I'm sure you'll regret it." Xander's mind raced. He had to think fast. He wasn't going to be anyone's loot, but right now, he had no choice but to play along. He would find a way out of this. But first, he needed to figure out who this Beastwoman was and what she wanted with him. Xander stood still, trying to steady his breath, as the Beastwoman's amber eyes locked onto him. Her grip had loosened slightly, but her presence was still as intimidating as ever. He could feel her power, her confidence, and the fact that she knew exactly how to control the situation. "You're not what I expected," she said, her voice low and calm, as if they were discussing something trivial. Most people would have begged for their lives by now. Xander didn't respond. He didn't want to show weakness. His mind was racing. What did she want from him? What did she mean by loot? The Beastwoman smiled, sensing his hesitation. She took a few steps back, inspecting him as though he were a valuable piece of treasure. Her sharp eyes never left him. "Don't look so worried," she said, her voice carrying a hint of amusement. "I won't hurt you. Yet." Xander frowned. "What do you want from me?" She tilted her head slightly, as if considering the question. "I told you already. You're my loot. I'm taking you with me." Xander's mind raced. He knew this wasn't just about being captured for ransom, or some kind of trade. There was something more behind her words, something deeper. But before he could ask another question, she gestured toward the entrance of the ruined building. "Come on, we've got a long journey ahead of us." Xander had no choice but to follow her. He knew better than to resist. It would only make things worse. But something about her intrigued him. Despite the danger she presented, she seemed to have a code, a set of rules she followed. She wasn't just an outlaw. She was something more, something unique. They walked together through the desolate ruins, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the silence. The Beastwoman led the way, her powerful form moving with a natural grace that Xander couldn't ignore. He had never seen someone so physically imposing, yet so fluid in her movements. She was a force of nature, untamed and wild, and he couldn't help but wonder how she had become the way she was. Finally, after what felt like hours of walking, they reached her ship. It was a sleek, black vessel with sharp, angular edges that made it look like a predator in the sky. The ship's engines hummed softly, ready to take off at a moment's notice. The Beastwoman turned to him and raised an eyebrow. "You can go inside. Don't try anything stupid." Xander didn't argue. He walked into the ship, and as soon as he did, the door slammed shut behind him. He glanced around the interior, noting the strange, high-tech equipment scattered around. The walls were lined with weapons and tools, evidence of the Beastwoman's mercenary lifestyle. "I've been hunting for someone like you," she said, her voice carrying through the ship's dimly lit interior. "I could have taken anyone, but there's something about you. You're not like the others." Xander didn't speak, his thoughts spinning. What was she talking about? Why was he different from anyone else? The Beastwoman continued, walking toward the control panel. "You're resourceful. You know how to survive. And that's exactly what I need." Xander furrowed his brow. "What do you need me for?" She smiled again, this time a little more sincerely. "You're going to help me with a job. I've got a target, and I need someone who knows how to get things done. Someone like you." Xander felt a surge of curiosity. "A target?" "Yes," she said, sitting down at the control panel and activating the ship's systems. "I'm not just a random outlaw. I've got a mission, and I need your help to accomplish it." Xander crossed his arms, trying to keep his composure. "And why do you think I'd help you?" The Beastwoman didn't look at him. Her eyes were fixed on a holographic map in front of her as she began to chart a course through the galaxy. "Because you don't have a choice," she replied coolly. "And because I know you'll want to know why. That curiosity of yours, it'll get you every time." Xander hesitated, torn between the urge to resist and the desire to learn more about this mysterious woman. He wasn't sure what kind of game she was playing, but one thing was clear: she wasn't going to let him go easily. He watched her in silence for a moment, his mind still racing with questions. Who was she really? What kind of mission did she have? And why did she choose him? There had to be more to this than just taking him as loot. The Beastwoman finally turned to him, her expression serious. "If you cooperate, you'll get your freedom. If not..." She trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air. Xander didn't know whether to trust her or not, but he also knew he couldn't just sit back and wait for her to make the next move. He had to learn about her, about the mission, and find a way out. For now, he had no choice but to play along, at least for a while. The ship hummed softly as it soared through the vast emptiness of space, leaving the desolate planet far behind. Xander sat in the small seat opposite the Beastwoman, his mind still racing from the events of the last few hours. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being swept into something much bigger than himself, something dangerous. The Beastwoman seemed at ease, her sharp eyes constantly scanning the readouts on the control panel, her movements fluid and confident. She didn't speak much, but the quiet was heavy with tension. Xander wasn't sure if it was the atmosphere of the ship or the strange pull he felt toward her, but something about her made him uneasy. She wasn't just any outlaw. She was a force of nature, wild and unpredictable. "Where are we going?" Xander asked, breaking the silence. His voice was steady, though his heart raced with the uncertainty of their destination. The Beastwoman glanced at him, her amber eyes glowing faintly in the dim light of the ship. "We're going to a planet called Draxon. It's remote, perfect for what I need to do." Xander frowned. "What do you need to do?" She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "That's for me to know." Xander didn't push further. He wasn't sure if she would tell him anything, but he was certain of one thing. He needed to understand her, or at least understand what she was after, if he was ever going to get out of this alive. The trip through space was long, and the silence between them stretched out, interrupted only by the hum of the ship's engines. As the days passed, Xander began to observe the Beastwoman more closely. Despite her fearsome appearance, there was a certain grace to her, an elegance in the way she moved, a quiet strength in her posture. She wasn't just a killer, she was a survivor. Her every action seemed deliberate, calculated. As they approached Draxon, the tension in the ship grew. The planet loomed large on the view screen, its surface covered in thick forests, towering mountains, and winding rivers. It looked wild, untamed, and dangerous. Exactly the kind of place someone like the Beastwoman would thrive. The ship began its descent, cutting through the clouds and heading toward a dense forest. Xander braced himself as the ship touched down, its landing gear scraping against the rough ground. The air outside was thick with humidity, and the scent of wet earth filled the cabin. The Beastwoman stood and turned to Xander. "Time to get moving. Stay close, and don't make any noise. The creatures here don't take kindly to strangers." Xander nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and fear. He had no idea what he was getting into, but he had no choice but to follow her. The forest was unlike anything Xander had seen before. The trees were massive, their trunks thick and gnarled, their leaves a deep shade of green. Strange, glowing plants dotted the ground, casting an eerie light in the otherwise dark woods. The air was heavy, almost oppressive, and Xander could hear the sounds of distant creatures calling out from the shadows. The Beastwoman moved through the forest with ease, her steps light and quick. Xander struggled to keep up, his boots sinking into the soft ground as he tried to match her pace. Every time he looked around, he could feel eyes on him. He wasn't alone. Something was watching him. "Stay close," the Beastwoman murmured, her voice barely audible above the sounds of the forest. "And don't make a sound." Xander didn't question her. He could tell by her tone that she wasn't giving a suggestion. It was a command. The deeper they went into the forest, the more the air seemed to change. The shadows grew longer, and the temperature dropped. Xander's breath came in shallow gasps as he tried to ignore the unease settling in his stomach. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves, made his heart race. They reached a clearing, and the Beastwoman stopped, her senses alert. She crouched low, signaling for Xander to do the same. He obeyed, dropping to the ground beside her, his eyes scanning the area. "Something's coming," she whispered, her muscles tensing. "Get ready." Xander's pulse quickened. He wasn't sure what she was expecting, but the sense of danger was growing stronger by the second. The Beastwoman's eyes locked onto the trees ahead, her gaze never wavering. And then, through the trees, they saw it. A massive creature emerged from the shadows, its body covered in thick fur, its eyes glowing a menacing red. It was like nothing Xander had ever seen before, a monstrous blend of predator and prey. It was as tall as a man, with claws that could tear through metal and teeth that looked like they could rip apart anything in their path. The Beastwoman didn't hesitate. She sprang forward, her claws extended, her movements faster than Xander could follow. She collided with the creature, knocking it off balance. They tumbled to the ground, locked in a deadly struggle. Xander froze for a moment, unsure of what to do. The Beastwoman was handling herself with ease, but he knew he couldn't just stand there and do nothing. "Move," she shouted as she kicked the creature away, giving herself a moment to breathe. "Fight or get eaten." Xander didn't need any more encouragement. He reached for the nearest weapon, an energy blade he had found in the ship, and charged forward, slashing at the creature with all his strength. It howled in pain, but the blow wasn't enough to stop it. Together, they fought, Xander following the Beastwoman's lead. They moved in perfect synchronization, her speed and strength complementing his quick thinking and agility. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the creature collapsed to the ground, defeated. The Beastwoman stood over it, breathing heavily, her eyes glowing with satisfaction. "Not bad," she said, wiping blood from her claws. "You've got potential." Xander felt a rush of adrenaline, his heart still pounding from the fight. "I wasn't planning on getting involved, but I'm glad I did." The Beastwoman glanced at him, her lips curling into a slight smile. "You're not as useless as I thought. Maybe we'll make a good team after all." As they stood in the clearing, the sense of danger still lingered in the air. But for now, Xander had survived, and he knew that this was just the beginning. Xander wiped the sweat from his brow as he followed the Beastwoman through the dense forest. They had been trekking for what felt like days, the thick trees and strange wildlife surrounding them. The air was heavy, filled with the sounds of distant creatures, but there was a strange silence between them now. The beast fight earlier had been intense, but it seemed like the Beastwoman was still calculating the next move, as if she had a plan in mind. "Do you ever stop moving?" Xander asked, trying to keep his voice light despite his exhaustion. The Beastwoman glanced over her shoulder, her amber eyes glowing softly in the dim light. "I don't stop until the job is done. You should learn to keep up." Xander gave her a tired smirk, but didn't say anything. He had learned that arguing with her was a waste of energy. The journey was taking its toll on him, and the thought of how long this mission might take started to feel like a heavy weight on his shoulders. His mind was still spinning from the fight with the creature earlier. What kind of planet was this? And why had she brought him here? They had come far from the ship, deeper into the wilderness of Draxon. The forest was beginning to thin out, and Xander could see a distant mountain range on the horizon. The further they went, the more the sense of danger seemed to increase. But there was something else now. The Beastwoman, who had once seemed so sure of herself, now seemed on edge, her sharp eyes scanning every movement in the trees. "What's out there?" Xander asked, his curiosity growing. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she kept her eyes focused ahead, narrowing with suspicion. "Something's wrong," she muttered. Before Xander could ask what she meant, a sudden rustling sound came from behind them. The Beastwoman's posture immediately stiffened, and she drew a weapon from her side, a large curved blade that shimmered in the fading light. Xander's heart skipped a beat, his instincts telling him to be ready for anything. A figure emerged from the trees, a man, dressed in rugged clothes, and with a face that was unfamiliar to Xander. He was walking slowly toward them, his hands raised in the air in a sign of peace. But Xander could tell that the Beastwoman was already suspicious. "Just what we need," she muttered under her breath, tightening her grip on the blade. The man smiled, but there was something cold about it, something that didn't seem right. "I was hoping to find you here," he said, his voice smooth but with an edge of threat beneath it. "I have a message for you, Beastwoman." Xander could feel the tension in the air, and the hairs on the back of his neck stood up. This wasn't good. He could sense the Beastwoman was already preparing for a fight, her eyes narrowing, and her stance ready to strike at any moment. "What do you want?" the Beastwoman growled, stepping forward with her weapon raised. The man chuckled, not intimidated in the slightest. "Nothing personal, of course," he said, "but you're no longer welcome here. It's time for you to leave." Xander glanced at the Beastwoman, noticing the slight flicker of hesitation in her eyes. It was subtle, but it was there. For the first time, she seemed uncertain, as if she didn't want to fight him. Xander couldn't tell why, but it felt like there was more to this encounter than met the eye. "Who sent you?" the Beastwoman demanded. The man's smile widened. "You know who," he said, his voice turning more menacing. "I wouldn't be here if I didn't have orders. The one who wants you gone. Well, let's just say they'll make sure you won't last long if you don't cooperate." Xander didn't understand. Who could possibly want the Beastwoman gone? She was a force to be reckoned with, and anyone who crossed her path wouldn't last long. But it seemed there was something more going on. The way the man spoke, the way the Beastwoman was reacting, it didn't make sense. The Beastwoman's eyes flickered with something Xander couldn't quite place, and for a moment she lowered her blade. That brief moment of hesitation was all it took. In a flash, the man lunged at her, moving faster than Xander could react. The Beastwoman barely had time to raise her weapon to block his strike, but the force of the attack sent her stumbling back. The man grinned, obviously enjoying the fight. "Traitor," she spat as she regained her footing, swinging her blade with incredible speed. Xander's heart pounded as he watched the two of them clash, the sound of steel meeting steel filling the air. He had no idea what was happening, but one thing was clear: this man wasn't a stranger to the Beastwoman. They had history, and it wasn't a good one. Xander knew he had to make a choice. He couldn't just stand there and watch. With a burst of adrenaline, he grabbed a nearby rock and hurled it at the man. It hit him in the back, momentarily distracting him, and in that brief moment, the Beastwoman took the advantage. She landed a swift blow to the man's side, knocking him to the ground. "Stay down," she growled, standing over him. The man gritted his teeth and slowly pushed himself up, a look of rage crossing his face. "You'll regret that," he hissed. "You don't know who you're messing with." Xander stepped back, trying to stay out of the way, but he could sense the tension between the two. The Beastwoman wasn't just defending herself. She was fighting someone she used to trust, or at least, that's what it seemed like. There was betrayal in the air, a feeling of old wounds being reopened. "I don't take kindly to being betrayed," the Beastwoman said coldly, her voice steady despite the tension. The man wiped blood from his mouth and took a step back. "This isn't over," he muttered, before turning and disappearing into the forest, leaving the two of them alone. Xander looked at the Beastwoman, his mind reeling. "What was that about?" he asked, still trying to make sense of the situation. She didn't answer immediately. She just stared into the forest where the man had vanished. Then finally she spoke, her voice softer than usual. That was someone I once trusted, someone I thought was on my side. She paused, looking at Xander. I guess I was wrong. Xander felt a surge of sympathy for her. Whatever had happened in the past, it was clear that the Beastwoman had been betrayed by someone she cared about. And now, it seemed, she was paying the price for it. We need to move, she said, her voice cold again. The danger's far from over. As they turned and continued their journey, Xander couldn't help but wonder what kind of world the Beastwoman had left behind, and what kind of past was catching up to her now. The dense forest of Draxon was unforgiving, its shadows stretching long as Xander and the Beastwoman moved deeper into the wilderness. Despite the danger that lingered, there was an undeniable tension between them, an unspoken understanding. The Beastwoman had already proven herself to be capable and fierce. Yet, after the betrayal they had just witnessed, Xander couldn't help but feel that things were unraveling. We need to get to the rendezvous point, she said, breaking the silence. Her voice was steady, but there was an edge to it, a sense of urgency. The sooner we get there, the better. Xander nodded, following her through the thick underbrush. His mind still raced, trying to make sense of everything. The man they had just fought was someone she had trusted, someone she had once worked with, and yet here he was, turning on her when she least expected it. It wasn't just betrayal, it was something much deeper. And Xander couldn't ignore the feeling that he had become entangled in something much bigger than he had ever anticipated. The Beastwoman paused for a moment, her sharp eyes scanning the horizon. Her posture was tense, as though every muscle in her body was coiled and ready to spring. Xander felt it too, the sense of being hunted. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that eyes were on them from every direction. The quiet was almost deafening. We're not alone, she said, barely a whisper. Her voice held a hint of warning, and Xander immediately understood. They had to move quickly, without drawing attention. The Beastwoman led the way, weaving through the trees with incredible agility. Xander tried to keep up, his steps heavy as he pushed through the dense foliage. His chest ached from the exertion, but he didn't dare slow down. He knew that if they were caught off guard, they would be in deep trouble. The sound of footsteps behind them snapped Xander out of his thoughts. He glanced over his shoulder, but saw nothing, just the trees and shadows, shifting in the wind. His heart raced, and he instinctively reached for the weapon at his side. He had never been in a situation like this before, but he was beginning to realize that he wasn't just a bystander in this strange adventure. He was involved, and the stakes were higher than he had ever imagined. Move faster, the Beastwoman urged, her voice sharp. They're close. Xander didn't need to be told twice. He pushed himself harder, his legs burning as he raced through the forest. The Beastwoman's silhouette was barely visible ahead of him, but he trusted her completely now. She was the only one who knew how to survive in this harsh environment. They had only been running for a few minutes when they reached a cliff edge, overlooking a vast chasm that seemed to go on forever. The wind howled as it swept through the trees, and Xander's heart sank. There was nowhere to go. They were trapped. The Beastwoman stopped at the edge, her eyes scanning the landscape below. Xander slowed to a halt beside her, trying to catch his breath. We'll have to jump, she said, her voice calm, as if this was just another normal part of their escape. Xander looked down at the steep drop below. The chasm was wide, and the rocks far below looked unforgiving. Jump, he repeated incredulously. Are you serious? The Beastwoman turned to him, her amber eyes glowing with intensity. It's the only way. Do you want to keep running, or do you want to survive? Xander swallowed, his mind racing. He wasn't sure he was ready for this. He hadn't signed up for jumping off cliffs. But there was no time to think. They could hear the faint sound of voices now, and that meant the people who had been following them were getting closer. Fine, Xander muttered, gathering his courage. He couldn't back down now. If he did, they would both be caught, and that was a fate worse than jumping. The Beastwoman took a deep breath, looking over her shoulder one last time. "I'll go first. You follow when I land. Don't hesitate." Without another word, she took a running start and leaped off the edge. Xander watched in awe as she soared through the air, her body twisting gracefully as she reached for the rocks on the other side. She landed with a loud thud, rolling to absorb the impact before quickly rising to her feet. "Your turn," she called up to him, her voice full of command. Xander hesitated for just a moment. His heart was pounding in his chest, his mind screaming at him to turn back. But he knew he had no choice. With a final deep breath, he stepped back, ran toward the edge, and jumped. The wind rushed past him as he fell, and for a split second, it felt like time had stopped. His body was weightless, suspended in midair. Then the ground rushed up to meet him. He reached out, hoping to grab hold of something, anything, and his fingers brushed against a jagged rock. With all his strength, he managed to catch hold, and the sharp pain shot through his hand as he clung on for dear life. "Come on," the Beastwoman shouted from below. "Climb up." Xander gritted his teeth and began pulling himself up. His muscles screamed in protest, but he ignored the pain. Every moment felt like an eternity as he struggled to make his way up the rocky face. Finally, after what felt like an age, he reached the top, where the Beastwoman was waiting for him. "You made it," she said, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. "Not bad for a city boy." Xander collapsed to the ground, breathing heavily. He had never felt so alive, and so terrified. But as he lay there, catching his breath, he couldn't help but feel a surge of respect for the Beastwoman. She had led him through this impossible escape, and though he was exhausted, he knew they were far free. "What do you mean?" Xander asked, his voice steady, though his heart was racing. The man turned his gaze toward him, sizing him up. "You're the human she's been keeping as her pet, aren't you?" he said with a smirk, "the one she claimed as her loot." Xander's blood ran cold. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This man knew about him, knew about his situation with the Beastwoman, and that didn't sit right. The Beastwoman's eyes flickered to Xander, and for a moment, she looked like she wanted to say something. But instead, she turned back to the man, her posture stiff. "You think you can just come here and make demands?" she asked, her voice icy. "I've been hunted for too long to fall for your tricks." The man's smile was gone now. He stepped closer, his presence imposing. "This is bigger than you. Bigger than both of us," he said, his voice growing colder. "You've been playing a dangerous game. And now you're going to lose." Xander's eyes darted between the two of them, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He didn't know who this man was or what his connection to the Beastwoman was, but one thing was clear. They were caught in the middle of something far beyond their control. "Is this how it ends?" Xander asked, stepping forward, his voice challenging. "With betrayal and lies." The man chuckled again, but this time it wasn't the laughter of someone enjoying the game. It was something darker, more calculating. "No," he said softly. "This is just the beginning." With those words, the Beastwoman's eyes flashed with anger, and she lunged forward, her blade slicing through the air with deadly precision. The man reacted quickly, ducking just in time, and the fight began in earnest. Xander watched in shock as the two of them clashed, their movements swift and dangerous. There was no time to think, only time to react. This was a battle neither of them had expected, and yet it was one they had both been preparing for. The sound of steel clashing against steel echoed through the forest clearing. Xander stood frozen, watching as the Beastwoman and the man fought with unmatched speed and precision. The Beastwoman's blade flashed through the air, striking with deadly intent, while the man skillfully dodged, his own weapon coming up to block her strikes. It was a dance of life and death, both combatants focused solely on the other. Xander's heart raced in his chest as he looked between the two. He had no idea who this man was or what kind of history he had with the Beastwoman, but it was clear that whatever it was personal. The intensity of the fight was unlike anything Xander had ever witnessed. He had never been trained in combat, but now, standing helplessly on the sidelines, he knew he had to make a choice. As the fight continued, Xander felt a strange surge of anger. The Beastwoman had saved him more than once, and now here she was, fighting for her life against someone she used to trust. The betrayal stung, and Xander couldn't stand by and do nothing. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about standing with her, about earning the trust she had shown him. The Beastwoman was starting to tire. Her breathing had become labored, and sweat dripped from her brow as she parried yet another blow. The man was relentless, not giving her a moment to breathe, and it seemed like he was waiting for just the right moment to strike. Xander took a deep breath, his hand instinctively reaching for the energy blade at his side. The weapon felt heavy in his grip, but he knew it was his only chance. He had to help. With a surge of adrenaline, Xander rushed toward the two combatants. The man barely noticed him until Xander was right behind him. In that moment, Xander swung the blade with all his strength, catching the man off guard and knocking his weapon out of his hand. The man spun around, startled, but before he could react, the Beastwoman struck, her blade finding its mark. The man fell to the ground with a grunt, his eyes wide with surprise. For a long moment, he just lay there, breathing heavily, staring up at the two of them. "You?" he gasped, trying to catch his breath. "You really think you can just walk away from this?" Xander stood over him, his heart still pounding in his chest. He wasn't sure what had just happened, but the moment of unity between him and the Beastwoman had been enough to end the fight. They had taken down their adversary, and for the first time, Xander felt like they were truly a team. The Beastwoman stepped forward, her eyes cold. "This is over," she said, her voice firm and unwavering. "I don't care what you were promised or what you think you know. You've betrayed me, and now you're going to pay for it." The man looked up at her, a sneer crossing his face. "You think you've won." He spat, his voice filled with venom. "You've only delayed the inevitable. There are others out there, and they will come for you." Xander could feel the tension in the air, the weight of the man's words hanging over them. But the Beastwoman didn't flinch. She looked down at him with disdain before turning her back and walking toward Xander. "Let him go," she said, her voice steady. "He's not worth our time." Xander watched the man for a moment longer. He could see the anger in his eyes, the fury that burned within him. But Xander knew the fight was over. The man wasn't a threat anymore. The Beastwoman led Xander away from the clearing, her pace steady. They didn't speak at first, but the silence between them was comfortable. They both needed time to process what had just happened, to come to terms with the events that had unfolded. The tension from the fight still lingered, but there was something else there too, something unspoken. As they walked, Xander glanced over at the Beastwoman. She was still the fierce, unrelenting warrior he had come to respect, but now there was a hint of vulnerability in her eyes. For the first time, Xander could see that she wasn't invincible. She had been hurt, betrayed by someone she had once trusted. "I don't know what's going to happen next," Xander said after a long pause, his voice quieter than usual. "But I want to help. I'm not leaving you." The Beastwoman stopped walking, turning to face him. Her expression softened slightly, and for a moment, Xander saw a glimpse of the person behind the fierce warrior, someone who had been through unimaginable challenges and had survived them all. "You don't have to stay," she said, her voice low but sincere. "I didn't drag you into this. But if you want to stay, then we do this together." Xander nodded, determination settling in his chest. "Together," he agreed. "I'm in this with you, whatever comes next." A small smile tugged at the corners of the Beastwoman's lips. It was brief, almost imperceptible, but it was enough for Xander to feel a sense of warmth between them. They were no longer just allies thrown together by chance. They had become something more, a team, bound by trust and the struggles they had endured together. and as they continued their journey through the wilderness of Draxon, Xander couldn't help but feel that, despite the danger that still lay ahead, he had found something he hadn't expected when he first met the Beastwoman: a partner. The world around them was still dark, filled with uncertainty and danger, but in that moment, Xander felt a sense of peace. No matter what came next, he knew they would face it together, and that in itself was enough to give him hope.